Hello, grade sixes. Welcome to Thursday's installment of BFG. We are getting pretty close to being done. It's getting pretty exciting. Now, for those of you who were able to recall yesterday, I had asked you why Sophie, what were the exact words? Sophie felt quite ill. And I asked, why did Sophie feel ill? Well, the line right before that said, a lot of little girlsies and boysies is no longer sleeping in their beds tonight. This meant that the giants had them. So she was feeling sick for those little boys and girls. If you did not answer yesterday's question, go in and do that because I don't turn it back to you with Mark until you do. Okay, here's today's installment. All at once, a curious orange-colored glow appeared in the night sky ahead of them. "We is coming close to London," the BFG said. He slowed to a trot. He began looking about cautiously. Groups of houses were now appearing on all sides, but there were still no lights in their windows. It was too early for anyone to be getting up yet. "Someone's bound to see us," Sophie said. "Never is they seein' me," the BFG said confidently. "You is forgetting that I is doing this sort of thing for years and years and years. No human being is ever catching even the smallest wink of me." "I did," Sophie whispered. "Ah?" he said. "Yes, but you was the very first." During the next half hour things moved so swiftly and so silently that Sophie, crouching in the giant's ear, was unable to understand exactly what was going on. They were in streets. There were houses everywhere. Sometimes there were shops. There were bright lamps in the streets. There were quite a few people about, and there were cars with lights on. But nobody ever noticed the BFG. It was impossible to understand quite how he did it. There was a kind of magic in his movements. He seemed to melt into the shadows. He would glide. That was the only word to describe his way of moving. He would glide noiselessly from one dark place to another, always moving, always gliding forward through the streets of London, his black cloak blending with the shadows of the night. I'm going to stop for a minute. I would like you to go to private messages right now and tell me what color the BFG's cloak was. Okay, so pause your video, go tell me, and come on back. It is quite possible that one or two late-night wanderers might have thought they saw a tall black shadow skimming swiftly down a murky side street. But even if they had, they would never have believed their own eyes. They would have dismissed it as an illusion and blamed themselves for seeing things that weren't there. Sophie and the BFG came at last to a large place full of trees. There was a road running through it, and a lake. There were no people in this place, and the BFG stopped for the first time since they had set out from his cave many hours before. "What's the matter?" Sophie whispered in her under the breath voice. So it'd be more like, "What's the matter?" "I is in a bit of a puddle," he said. "You're doing marvelously," Sophie whispered. "No, I isn't," he said. "I is now completely boggled. I is lost." "But why?" "Because we is meant to be in the middle of London, and suddenly we is in green pastures." "Don't be silly," Sophie whispered. "This is the middle of London. It's called Hyde Park. I know exactly where we are." He was joking. "I'm not. I swear I'm not. We're almost there." "You mean we is nearly at the Queen's Palace?" cried the BFG. "It's just across the road," Sophie whispered. "This is where I take over." "Which way?" the BFG asked. "Straight ahead." The BFG trotted forward through the deserted park. Now stop. So here's the illustration for that page. Isn't that cute with Sophie? Here. The BFG stopped. You see that huge roundabout ahead of us just outside the park? Sophie whispered. I see it. That is Hyde Park Corner. Even now, when it was still an hour before dawn, there was quite a lot of traffic moving around Hyde Park Corner. Then Sophie whispered, in the middle of the roundabout there is an enormous stone arch with a statue of a horse and rider on top of it. Can you see that? The BFG peered through the trees. I is seeing it, he said. Do you think that if you took a very fast run at it, you could jump clear over Hyde Park Corner, over the arch and over the horse and rider and land on the pavement on the other side? Easy, the BFG said. You're sure? You're absolutely sure? I promise, the BFG said. Whatever you do, you mustn't land in the middle of Hyde Park Corner. Don't get so flustered, the BFG said. To me, that is a snitchy little jump. There's not a thing-a-ling-a-ling to it. Then go, Sophie whispered. The BFG broke into a full gallop. He went scorching across the park, and just before he reached the railings that divided it from the street, he took off. It was a gigantic leap. He flew high over Hyde Park Corner and landed as softly as a cat on the pavement on the other side. Well done, Sophie whispered. Now quick, over that wall. Directly in front of them, bordering the pavement, there was a brick wall with a fearsome-looking spike on it. Oh, no, fearsome-looking spikes all along the top of it. A swift crouch, a little leap, and the BFG was over it. We're there, Sophie whispered excitedly. We're in the Queen's back garden. Oh, very exciting. So, our next chapter, the palace. Okay, I have 2 more things I want you to go and answer in private messages. Number 1, what park were they just in? And just try your best at spelling it. So what park did they land in? And then at the very end of this chapter, whose back garden did they end up in? Okay, so 3 things. Color of the cloak. What park did they end up in the middle of London? And whose back garden were they at after this happened? So at the end of this, whose back garden? 3 things. Talk to you later. I miss you.